Alrighty, everyone. So, Mr. Chapman, would you mind kicking us off this evening with our welcome?
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Johnny Chapman, and I'm a 1985 graduate of NC State College of Textiles and the current treasurer of the NC State Black Alumni Society. On behalf of the Alumni Association and the Black Alumni Society, I'd like to welcome you to part 2 of our conversation on Black philanthropy here at NC State. Tonight, we will learn more about the current state of student diversity on campus, dive deeper into learning how to make a gift to NC State, and then hear from fellow alumni on their giving experiences. First, I'd like to introduce Matthew Williams, who will start us off this evening.
Thank you, Johnny. So my name is Matthew Williams, and I'm the Associate Director of Development with the College of Humanities and Social Sciences here at NC State. And I'm also a 2014 graduate with a degree in political science. And I'm so fortunate enough to say that I'm also a proud legacy of the university, following in the footsteps of my mom, who graduated in 1998, and my cousin, who graduated in 2009. I just want to thank you all for joining us this evening as we continue to dive into learning more about the makeup of our students and learn more about how we as donors can make an impact on their lives through our philanthropy while also leaving our legacies here at NC State. But as we get started, I just want to remind us all that this evening is being recorded. So we'd like to be able to share clips of this event if for those who are unable to join us this evening. I ask you all to keep yourselves muted, but feel free to use the chat function to have open discussions during the presentation. And as you're listening to our speakers, I encourage you to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. That way, the questions will come directly to us on the back end, and you can possibly even get some live answers. And I'll apologize in advance for any questions that we are unable to get to this evening. So to start us off, I'd like to welcome from the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, the Student Diversity Coordinator, Mr. Joe Johnson, who will take us into a little bit more about the makeup of our students.
Well, thank you, Matthew. And I'd like to thank the Black Alumni Association for hosting this wonderful event. There are all kinds of opportunities for individuals to give back, but to have a student receive something from a Black alumni is even more powerful than one can ever imagine. I don't do this work alone, as you can see. I didn't put the college that each of these diversity practitioners work for, but there's a diversity coordinator in each college at NC State. And these are my colleagues who do the wonderful job of supporting our students, not only through educational programs, but also through mentoring. Many of you probably have interacted with them. Many of them are alums of NC State. I too attended NC State from 1986 to 1990 on an athletic scholarship. So I am a Wolfpack through and through. Next slide, please. So the state of what we consider to be diversity at NC State, as you know, primarily NC State has been focusing on 3 major populations: Native Americans, African Americans, and Latino populations. Here you can see the numbers from 2008 to 2019. The 2020 numbers, the census date had just passed due to COVID. I didn't want to put out any false information until we are sure of what those numbers look like. So as you can look at, the African American population has been declining over the recent years. There's a lot of factors that may be associated with that, as North Carolina becomes much more of a diverse, has a much more diverse population. So that population has also increased and decreased Black students here at NC State. But doesn't mean that these numbers are finite, because there are other causes that may lead to the decrease in the African American enrollment. Next slide. So general observations, right? We've been declining. The university was at its highest peak in 2000, and in 2000, with 10% of this population being Black or African American students. To our low point now at 6% in 2019. I project that we're still going to be in the 5.9 to 6% range in the 2020 census. Some of this decline, as you can look at, has been an increase in not only the SAT scores, but also in the weighted GPA. So our students have, not only has NC State become more competitive, and our students have risen also to that competitiveness across North Carolina. We're still looking at our, if I bought the data, so our African-American students are just as well accomplished in the classroom and on standardized tests as their peers. And so it leads to say, why are we having a decline if our students are achieving the same success? Next slide. And so a lot of things happen, right? There are we call recruitment and yields. So we're not that my colleagues and I are not out actively recruiting not only minority students, but African-American students in NC State. We've also created programs that help increase that least application. And we do get plenty of applications from African-American students. But what's happening is that we're not yielding those students. We're admitting a high number of students. This past year, we admitted over 1,100 students, but only 298 accepted that application or that acceptance letter to come to NC State. So there's 800 students who are sitting out there who chose not to attend NC State after being admitted. And so how do we encourage students to take that acceptance and actually come to NC State? So there are programs that we do that target certain populations, such as campus visits programs. That's not only done through the admissions office, but that's also done through the colleges. We also can provide scholarships, not only through the colleges, but also through financial aid that may entice these high achieving students to attend. Remember, these students are just as accomplished as everyone else. And so these students have options. When you think about a SAT score of 1250 or higher and an ACT score of 28 and having a weighted GPA somewhere between a 3.9 and 4.1, that student can almost go to anywhere in the country with those grades. And so our students have become much more competitive, and there are more colleges recruiting that highly competitive student to attend their university. So scholarships are one way that we can ensure that students at least look at us as equal to some of the other peer colleges in the state of North Carolina, especially Chapel Hill and Wake Forest, which typically some of our students choose over NC State. And some of our engineers too. If you get an opportunity to go to North Carolina A&T, which produces the highest number of Black engineers in the country, that may be a viable place for you, given that the UNC system has created scholarship opportunities for those high achieving students. So our yield and our acceptance are one of the ways that we're focusing on this year to see if we can move that needle a little higher in enrolling more African-American students. And once again, the trend is also not in the African-American population, we have more women attending universities than we do males. So there may be a couple of male initiatives that you may want to think about supporting that will increase not only the male yield, but also the African-American yield. And so one way that we look at not only, recruiting the student, getting the student to attend, but also how do we keep the students engaged and in their scholarship. So there's a lot of programs, as you can look at, that are centered around diversity programs and celebrations, right? Because students want to see and feel that the university is acknowledging their identities. So we have, Heritage Months, we have cultural nights. We also have a living learning village now called the Black Male Initiative. Also Pan-African, which has been a staple for the African community here at NC State every spring. There's also theme connections that we try to host, not only with diversity coordinators, but also units on campus that are centered around diversity initiatives. Like the African American Culture Center hosts At the Table every Friday. there's a space for WomenX, and that's hosted by the Women's Center. The Black Male Engagement, that's a new initiative we started this year to engage our Black males on campus around their identity, but also to provide some mentorship, and that's undergrad through graduate students. You also had Traveling While Black, and that's a study abroad in Africana Studies joint venture to get more students to think about, these high impact practices and how these high impact practices not only lead to enhancing your undergraduate education, but also and it improves your opportunity to go to graduate school. We also have a ton of student groups who are identity groups, and some of them are in the colleges and some of them are part of the university. And so there are multiple ways in which we're trying to keep the student engaged, and not only in their scholarship, but also in their social aspects of their college journey. And there are other kind of opportunities with other high impact practices, which I think is very important, that the college diversity coordinators put on within their own colleges. We also work with the Career Development Center around programming. We have TRIO, and now we also, for the third year, have been offering the McNair program, which is a program gearing undergraduate students to pursue PhD degrees. So that program is off and running. We had 3 scholars this year who went to fabulous colleges, one to Georgia State, one to Michigan State, and one to the University of Pittsburgh. But all those things are other enrichment needs. And as you know, the Student Emergency Fund was utilized throughout, not only when you were in college, but when I was in college, we called it that little emergency fund that financial aid used to give you, that $500 or $100 in which you borrowed and which you had to pay back. But the great thing about the Student Emergency Fund is that students don't have to pay this money back. This money is vetted. So the student will have to submit a reason why they would need this fund, and the fund has no restriction on what you're able to use the money for. And as you can tell with COVID this past spring, we had a lot of students, not only students of color, but non-students of color also had to utilize this funding because students just wasn't able to, one, afford the transition from out of housing or to buy a computer, because many of our students utilize the library or other on-campus labs to do their homework. So this emergency fund came in very handy for adding and providing students not only with hotspots, but also computers, also providing, rent stabilization money. So if you needed additional money to pay your rent, they also provided that. And also the food pantry. All these are strategic needs that our students not only are seeking, but are in desperate need of. Food and housing security is on the rise among college students. And the trends, don't know why, but maybe it's always been there. But now that COVID has arisen, many people who used to allow others to share their apartment are probably no longer doing that. So we're seeing more students who are in desperate need of additional resources. And so to wrap my kind of conversation up, any resources, whether it's a scholarship or money that goes towards an endowment in which students can access, provide students with the opportunity to seek out additional educational opportunities that we probably wouldn't be able to offer them without your help. From students who, once again, who need computers to students who want to do a study abroad, but parents are unable, and their scholarship or their financial aid is unable to provide all the necessities that they would need, from buying the plane ticket to spending money while they're there. And so I would encourage you to think about, the multiple ways in which you can give, because students, especially students of color, African-American students especially, could be benefiting from not only your knowledge and talents, but also from those resources in which you can give back to them.
All right, thank you, Joe. And Joe's been gracious enough to stick around with us for the Q&A period that will be at the end of the presentation. So if you have those questions, please submit them to the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And so after hearing about those experiences and the needs of students, naturally what happens with most individuals is they want to know how they can become a donor. What is that next step? So, and that is the subject of our presentation this evening. That's why these conversations have started with the Black Alumni Society, and why I get the opportunity to work with my partner and friend from the Central Major Gifts team to help me co-present on this presentation tonight. Everyone, I'd like you to welcome Maylie Munoz.
Hi, thanks, Matt. You are by far one of my most favorite people to work with. So thank you so much for being a fantastic co-creator of these events. Thanks, Joe, for sharing that information with us, and we're gonna circle back to you a little bit later. As Matt mentioned, I work with our alumni and friends in the Charlotte and upstate South Carolina regions, and have been with the university for going on about 2 years, and it has been an absolute honor to meet and work with our diverse alumni in those regions, some of who are on tonight's panel. I also have about 20 years of experience in higher education, including fundraising work at several HBCUs, most recently at Morehouse School of Medicine in Atlanta. So I have a personal and a professional interest in elevating Black philanthropy at NC State and bringing light to these gifts that are changing lives. So thanks to each of you in the audience for being with us. Unfortunately, we can't see you, but I want to thank you all for being here. And I know that this virtual environment is not ideal. It's not the way we prefer to gather, but I appreciate that we're able to offer these panel discussions to so many people, so many of our alumni who live in different parts of the country. So there is some advantage to the Zoom thing, right, Matt? I'm not all zoomed out quite yet, so.
Absolutely. All right, so as we mentioned in our previous presentation, I want you all to remember that you all have a voice here at NC State. And we all have the opportunity to continue to push NC State forward, and not just by giving, but by investing in NC State. And as we go into the presentation, I want you also to know that investing in NC State, it's something that can be a transformative experience for each and every person that it can impact on our campus. And I'd also like to mention a little fun fact about the presentation, that all the photos that you see have actually been taken from stories that have been featured by the university. So you'll get those links to all the stories, and you'll also get this presentation at the conclusion of our program. And I encourage you to read those stories, read the stories behind those incredible photos that, again, have been featured by our university. All right, so philanthropy. There are many definitions out there for philanthropy, but one of the ones that kept kind of popping up to the top was this one: the desire to promote the welfare of others, expressed especially by the generous donation of money to good causes. And the thing is, so whether you're giving your time or your treasure, you can be philanthropic to NC State. And it's not entirely just about talking about a dollar amount, because you actually got to make the gift. And by spending the time on the causes that you believe in here at NC State, that's really how we make those transformational moments happen. So as we continue through the presentation, I want you all to remember that there's a reason that NC State hires people like Maylie and myself. As development officers, it's our job to be your philanthropic advisors, to go with you through the giving process to help you achieve your desired impact. So I don't want anyone to ever get sticker shock or just think that, you know what, I can't make an impact. There's nothing that I can do, because you know what? The number of people that are surprised, and I hope that you'll be surprised and learn more how you can make an impact through this presentation, because there's just so much good that can be done in so many ways in which to make it happen.
It's my turn, sorry. And there is Zoom, and sorry about that, I was on mute. So now I'm catching up. So in 2014, let's just start here. 2014, NC State embarked on an ambitious journey of raising $1.6 billion in our Think and Do the Extraordinary campaign. And in true Wolfpack spirit, with support from you, our alumni, as well as friends and faculty, students and parents, and corporate and foundation partners, we met that goal 2 years ahead of schedule. Those funds are being used to increase scholarship and fellowship opportunities for undergraduate and graduate students. It's helping to strengthen our faculty's research, which helps the university maintain its position as a top research university, and extend education and opportunity to tens of thousands of students all over the country. What that showed us, what you showing up to make that happen has showed us, is that no matter how far members of the PAC roam, you always come back to show your support.
And in the last webinar, we talked a lot about, what are all those reasons why? Why is it important to give to NC State? So in this presentation, I wanted to take it all the way back to the campaign, back to the reasons why all of this started. And when the Think and Do the Extraordinary campaign, when it started, it just didn't start with an ambitious dollar amount, but it started with a focus on the pillars of our university that make us unique, and that also around all of those areas that we needed more private support for, because we needed to help continue to keep NC State at the forefront of innovation and to serve the mission of our land-grant institution. So your support allows us the opportunity to unlock untold opportunities for our dynamic students from North Carolina and around the world. It allows us to expand upon NC State's proud foundations by building transformative and cutting-edge facilities. It gives us the opportunity to focus on the education and innovation of our faculty and their research, which are powerful forces for good, and with an incredible amount of purpose. And we get to empower our students with skills, experiences, and new perspectives that add even more value to what they already learn in the classroom. And it allows us to continue NC State's long-standing commitment to serve its state and our citizens through the applied innovation that solves problems and fuels prosperity. So in short, at the end of this presentation, like the webinar we did before, there's so many reasons on why it's important to give. But in short, if someone asks you the question, you can simply tell them it's about the opportunity, the places, the purpose, the experience, and the leadership here at our institution.
Exactly. And now I'm back on track, Matt, so. So what exactly does philanthropy at NC State look like? It looks like us, and it can continue to look like us as long as we keep engaging in courageous conversations. And I'm borrowing that phrase from my friend Angela Rivers. Courageous conversations like these, conversations about why Black philanthropy is critical to the future of this university. Conversations about how to create an indelible mark through philanthropy, and conversations about who should be at the table. It should be noted that giving among our Black alumni has already an impressive history. 26%, and those of you who joined us in our last webinar, 26% of the alumni population who identify as Black or African American has donated nearly $9.5 million to this university. So when you consider that the university's total Black alumni population is about 22,500 members strong, compared to about 225,000 white non-Hispanic alumni, that number can't be ignored. And giving among Black alumni really got the attention of leadership last year when BAS collectively raised more than $40,000 on a single day during the university's first ever day of giving. So now, as we prepare for our second day of giving, shameless plug, which is 1 week from today, and that date is September 16th, so go ahead and mark your calendar. Now is the time to increase that giving percentage, to amplify this collective voice at NC State.
And so that next step, how can you move the needle? So there are many ways to make your impact around campus. And a little later, you'll hear from panelists that have already started that giving journey and started that process or made their gifts already. And we'll start first with time and talent. And so we know, and that's if you have the time to spare. For many individuals who will be embarking on giving conversations, especially major gift conversations, time is of the essence. But the thing I want you to know is that when you do have those moments of spare time, to please volunteer, whether it be with the Black Alumni Society or with your college, because you have no idea what it can mean for a student to have the opportunity to meet or to hear from an alum that looks like them. And in most cases, see someone in a position in a career field that they maybe didn't see themselves in. And then we have treasure. I mean, it's the whole reason that we're here this evening. Giving makes a tremendous impact on the university. If you just think back to when you were in college, about those moments where you didn't know how you were going to make it through, or how you didn't know if you were even going to be able to eat. As Joe mentioned before, I'm sad to say that those stories still exist here at NC State. And the thing about those students that are going through those situations, it fights against them, and it takes away their opportunity a lot of times to really be able to dream, to participate in some of those high impact practices like getting an internship or studying abroad or doing undergraduate research, because it's too hard just trying to figure out how to make it through on the day-to-day. And the research has shown that, especially when it comes to those high impact practices, that it not only helps in retaining students, but it helps give them a leg up in their future careers. And so when you hear yourself, or when you hear someone else say, you know what, I don't have enough because I can't make a multi-million-dollar gift, so you know what, I'm not going to give. I want you to know that every dollar amount counts, especially as we look at Day of Giving next week. It's just a matter of finding out where that gift can go. So please always know that it always counts here at NC State. And lastly, I'll go into a testimony. Please share your story at any opportunity that you get. Many colleges even have sections on their websites to where you can submit your own story. Because whether you're telling your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors, or even the students, most importantly our students, tell them about your journey to get to NC State, what your experience was like as a student, and then what you've been up to since graduating. Because those experiences are what make NC State uniquely NC State and make us the Wolfpack that we are. It can help bring us closer together, and it can help us prevent ourselves from making mistakes that we have in the past. Because we have that collected history, we're always able to stay together. And so, as we go into the next thing, if I got you inspired on wanting to move the needle, I gotta let you know how, right? So, first up we have cash. Everyone loves cash, everyone wants cash. And as a development officer, I really do like it as well. And the reason is because by making a cash gift to the university, it almost instantly impacts our students. And the thing is, if you have the means to do it, there will be a development officer there to work with you. But if you have longer term goals, and maybe you get a certain amount every year that you want to pledge, you can do that. You can pledge that gift to the university. It allows you to make your annual gifts, but we get it down in writing. It's that commitment with the university, and you know what's coming up every year, and we know it too, so we're able to plan around it. And speaking of planning things, plan gifts. And this is one of the things that I think a lot of people think about, but really taking that moment to look in all the possibilities is where we come in handy. Because planned gifts allow our alumni and friends to make a larger investment in the university than they probably thought was possible of themselves. Because together as development officers, we work with you to build a plan to meet the goals of your own personal estate and to leave your legacy. That is what we're here to do. Whether it be through wills, bequests, IRA designations, insurance policies, etc. We have a whole office here at NC State just focused on planned giving. And so when I say we're here to be your partners in this, we're here to make sure that every T is crossed and I is dotted, and making sure that your legacy is exactly the way that you would like it to be here at the institution, getting it as close as possible. And then we have matching gifts. So many employers sponsor matching gifts to where they will match the charitable contribution of an employer. And also another thing here, NC State has a website for that as well. So all you have to do, you can go to the giving page, go to matching gifts, and put in your employer to see if they're in the system of a matching gift. And so you go to your employer, you request the form, fill it out, and then you send it over to us, and then the rest is, we take care of the rest. And that way your gift is already making an even bigger impact.
You know, I can never get the T crossed I dotted thing down. So glad you said that, because I could, I'm crossing I's and dotting T's. You know, so just like you mentioned, life is all about options, right? And as you can see, we give you plenty of them when it comes to philanthropy at NC State. Cash, planned gifts, matching gifts, appreciated securities, life income gifts, charitable lead trusts, life insurance, some real estate, personal property, all are ways that you can make gifts at NC State. But maybe you're still thinking that your gift couldn't possibly compete with the ones made by the millionaire and billionaire philanthropists who make 7- and 8-figure gifts to their alma mater or a food pantry or an after-school program. It is true that too often would-be donors who want to support an organization are discouraged from making a gift after they read the national headlines about donations like Robert Smith's $34 million to Morehouse College to pay off the student debt of every member of the graduating class of 2019, which was admirable, absolutely admirable and necessary to help those young men get through their lives without debt. But what gets buried in that story, or maybe you missed this detail because you were focused on the dollar amount like I was, is that Smith had never given one dime to the college before making that transformational gift. Never, had never given a dime. In fact, according to an article in the Chronicle of Philanthropy, he had only visited the campus for the first time a year and a half earlier to attend a gala, but he connected with the students and the place. So it's important to know who you're supporting. And so while you might not have yet made a gift to NC State, you have an advantage that Robert Smith did not. You know the ways NC State changed you. And you probably have personally experienced how philanthropy can impact a life, how it can change someone's trajectory, how it can uncover an answer, and how it can close a gap. And even if you don't have Robert Smith money, although if you do, call me or Matt because we really want to talk to you about some things, please don't shy away from giving, because as we've promised, we have more options for you. So here are 3 really straightforward ways to make a gift at NC State. Pretty simple. Annual gifts are the ones that you make, well, annually, when you are sitting at dinner and one of those really chipper students calls you in the middle of dinner to ask you for a gift, or when you receive a solicitation in your email. Those gifts are designated leadership annual gifts if they are in the amount of $1,000 or more every year. When you make an annual gift of $1,000 or more, either at one time or throughout the year, you're eligible for membership in the Chancellor Circle. And those gifts can be used to increase scholarships, invest in research, fund outreach projects, enrich libraries, sponsor the arts, or support any other area at NC State that's meaningful to you. Our current use gifts, which we also refer to sometimes as restricted gifts, are those gifts that start in the $10,000 range, either paid or outright through a pledge, and are typically used to support a specific department or unit, or college or program or initiative. Think of it the way that one of my colleagues described it, as a laser-focused gift that is exhausted once all the funds have been spent. Those differ, however, in a few ways from endowments. Endowments happen to be mine and Matt's most favorite type of gifts, and they're the ones that produce perpetual income for the university, and they provide ongoing support for everything from full tuition scholarships and study abroad opportunities to professorships, centers of excellence, and even athletic practice facilities. A minimum endowment is $50,000 and can be paid outright over a predetermined pledge period or via one of the vehicles we just talked about. And in a few minutes, you'll hear from some of our panelists about the endowments that they have established and how through their giving, they're changing the narrative about philanthropy at NC State.
All right, so if Maylie and I have done our jobs, you have learned a little bit more about how to give and you want to give. And so the thing is, even if you don't exactly know where or exactly how much you'll be able to give, the thing is, the fact that you want to is the time to go ahead and start to talk to development. So we have development officers that span everything from major gifts like Maylie and myself to annual giving. And we have individuals that focus on central major gifts like Maylie does, or individuals that are specifically within colleges like myself in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. The key step is that we need you to talk to us. And whether it be following up with us after this presentation, or for some people answering an email or a phone call that we may have left you, the key thing is having a quick conversation to where we can discover what your needs are to help put you and develop your next steps in your philanthropic journey. And so again, reach out to a development officer. Explore NC State's giving websites, whether it be our ones that are university-wide, the ones specifically for your college, or the Office of Gift Planning. And remember, next week is Day of Giving. So if you haven't made a gift in a while, or you want to keep up your yearly annual gifts, it's a great opportunity to hop back in there and help the students in need. And continue to think about your impact and your legacy. Actually, I'll share a quick story about talking with my mom last night. And she was talking to me about what to designate her gifts for Day of Giving next week. And I said, well, Mom, what do you want your impact to be? What students do you want to help make a change in their life? And it made her think about her time as an NC State student. And then it made her think about maybe doing something a little bit more from there. And just like that, I was like, I guess I'm kind of my mom's development officer now at this point. But it's those things that we want you all to keep in mind. And so this is also something else. In this next slide, I want you to let you know how proud I am to be a part of it. So here at NC State, we know that representation matters. And for a lot of our alumni, a barrier has been not only not seeing themselves as donors, but also not seeing themselves on the other side of the table to begin their conversations about giving. Well, I'm proud to say that NC State is improving, and we now have a Black development officer in the majority of the colleges here at NC State. So I want you all to know that whether it's reaching out to one of us, or it's reaching out to one of the many other development officers here at NC State, I encourage you to look at your college, units, central major gifts. And again, you may have an email or a voicemail from one of us that you have been thinking about and looking at. But just know, we're here to see if this is the right time for you to make your gift. And it may not be, but at least we can give you some information to, again, help you think about the future. And the thing is, if you don't leave this conversation with anything else, I want you to know that coming from me, my heart, from this university, that I never want the lack of representation to be a deterrent or a barrier for you making your gift to NC State. So know that we are here, even if it's just to answer the phone and answer a few questions, just to steer you in the right direction of who your next step will be as you continue and start your giving journey here at NC State. And so now it's time for what I know all of you are really here for, our amazing group of panelists who are going to really talk to you about their giving journeys and what inspired them to give. So how I'll start this off, I'll introduce everyone, and then from there, I'll pass it off to Maylie, and then she'll go ahead and kick our panel off. So first off, we have Angela Caraway from the class of 1995, president of the Caraway Management Group. We have Johnny Chapman from the class of 1985, senior manager at Red Hat and the current BAS treasurer. We have Stephanie Cogdell from the class of 92, the senior global health HR manager at InterHealth International. We have Daryl K. Lester from the class of 91, Director of Service Year, North Carolina at the Institute of Emerging Issues here at NC State, and the founder of the Community Investment Network. And then we have Angela Rivers from the class of 83, the Senior Vice President at Bank of America. And then we have Mr. Kirk Wilder from the class of 90, the COO, VP, and General Counsel for the Wyndham Dentistry Group. So I'm passing it over to you, Maylie.
I am so excited. I feel like we're like sports commentators, right? I feel like
I know, right? It feels
you
good.
know, watching a game or something. But I have to tell you, I had the best time with these panelists last night while we were together for a technology rehearsal for tonight's event. After the formal rehearsal was complete, our panelists began to relive some of their best and most poignant moments as students at NC State, and the unique community that not only insulated them, but also instilled in them the wisdom that they've all said inspired them to become the people they are today. So it's truly a pleasure to engage them in this important conversation. And they represent several different colleges, they represent several different years. So it'll be exciting to hear each one of them give their perspective. And hopefully, Matt, if we haven't done our jobs well enough, I'm pretty sure that someone on this panel is going to inspire someone in that audience to make a gift to NC State. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to respond to this question, and we are going to start with Angela Caraway. But I'd like you to tell us, Angela, you didn't know that, did you? It's your last name. It's your last name. So talk to us about your experience as a Black alumna of NC State. Tell us what and or who inspired you to become a donor to this university.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be part of this distinguished panel. I'm excited to talk about my story and to share with you guys in the audience about why I decided to give to the university. But to answer your question, you know what, I had a great time at NC State. I was one of those students, and I'll tell anybody that I was a great high school student. I had great grades, but I was not necessarily the best standardized test taker. And I came through NC State through the university transition program, but I knew I wanted to be a student at NC State. So I was like, okay, give it to me. But there were benefits through that program that were great. We got paid. And besides that, we had great instructors. I had a chance to meet Dr. Thomas Conway and Frankie Artist, and people that instilled in me that regardless of how I got there, I deserved to be there. And I deserve the same opportunity as everyone else. I may had to go through an extra step, but I still deserve to be there. And they showed me that how important it was to make sure that I made myself known. You sat in the front, even though Dr. Conway was not necessarily in every one of our classes, but he made sure that we sat in the front. And I made sure that I went to every instructor and said, this is what I expect you to do for me. This is what I'm going to do for you. And then this is what I expect you to do for me. And so I made sure that though I was the only Black student in class, that I still deserve to be here. And I didn't want to be treated differently. But it was my grandmother. So to answer your question, it was my grandmother that made sure that I understood the importance of giving back, that I knew what it was to make sure that others had when they didn't have, that we made sure as a family that we made sure that people could get the essentials, food, even if we had to carry jugs of water to people. I remember doing that. So it was my grandmother that instilled the importance of giving back. And that was very well my time and my talent. We didn't have much money, but that was just as important as money. So when I graduated from NC State, I wrote down a list of things that I wanted to do. And one of those things was to make sure that I created a scholarship to NC State for students like myself. And that was in honor of my grandmother. And so it was her that instilled that in me, and to make sure that I gave back. And I did that. And I'm very proud of myself that I was able to do that.
We appreciate you for doing that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So Johnny, heads up. Tell us what or who inspired you as a Black alum of NC State to become a donor to this university?
All right, can you hear me? Well, I came to NC State in 1980, so you can imagine back then the university was a lot different than what it is today. There were small groups of Blacks, and I would say the fraternity was one of the groups that I got involved with, and that showed a lot of connection. Not only was I connected to my fraternity brothers, but all the fraternities on campus, they all had this connection between each other. They did a lot of things together, and I started to see the importance of connection. But it only hit me about 12 years ago when my son was a student at Southeast Raleigh High School, and I became involved with the PTA organization. So I was a treasurer of the PTSA. So it seemed like I've kind of served as a treasurer to a lot of organizations. So I was a treasurer there, and what I started to see was each year they gave away a scholarship. And what happened is when people stopped giving money to the scholarship, the students were kind of they was in this frenzy. They didn't know what to do. And so it was important to start figuring out how to give money. So my wife and I started personally giving money to the scholarship each year. And so now we've done it almost 10 years. We've been able to avoid that, provide money to that scholarship each year, which it gives you an opportunity to give to some student. And so this year I got a letter from that first student, and they told me about the importance of that scholarship and what it meant to them. So when I took the high school level, I started thinking about what about the university? I'm sitting here today because of NC State. Now, I don't know if anybody else want to take the credit, but I take credit for my university. My university is why I'm sitting here in my house. I have my job. And what I wanted to do is, as you get older, you start thinking about what do you want to leave behind? So I started thinking about the legacy, what I want to leave behind. And so I've been fortunate to be blessed with a job where I can give and have my job to match it. And so I started several years giving to the university. And so I've given to the different scholarship, the Clark and Witherspoon scholarship. And now I've been able to start venturing out. I graduated from the College of Textiles. So now I'm starting to work with giving to the College of Textiles. And so it's starting to spread, and I'm just blessed to be able to give. But I think when I think about that letter that I got from the student that talked about the importance of that scholarship, that starts to make you think about how you're impacting and changing someone's life. And that's what I really want to be able to do. And so that's why I think it's important for me. And I think it's important for all the listeners to give back to this university. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a blessing to be a blessing is what I'm hearing you say. Stephanie, can you share with us what your story is in terms of who or what inspired you to be
Yes.
to this university?
So I'll be honest. My first giving was through the Wolfpack Club. I was an avid sports fan, and I found out in order to get good seats, I need to be a donor. So I started off that way, but then attending homecomings and getting involved with people like the Begdons, Jim Stewart, Rhonda, and Ted McFarland, I got more engaged with the Black Alumni Society and becoming very active in homecoming. And so I felt like I was more involved, more engaged with the university. I had a place other than just a former student or alumna of the university. Through church and through Delta, I always knew about service, but I didn't know much about philanthropy. I started hearing phrases that I first heard Daryl Lester say, giving Black, to give back to the university. So because I feel like I had a close connection with Dr. Clark, Dr. Witherspoon, and being there when the African American Culture Center was started, I felt obligated to give and help to continue on with the legacy so that the students at NC State would see that we do care about them. We are giving money back to the university so that we can create scholarships that they could qualify for. Then also through Wolfpack Club and through one of the giving officers, Alan Taylor, I found out about the Poland Society and leaving a gift, a planned gift. and how easy that was, that I could leave them a gift. And through that gift, you become part of the Pullen Society, and you have a luncheon that you're invited to with the chancellor and Dean Braden, whoever it is over your college that you give to. And I was able to donate to women's basketball, the Clark and Witherspoon Scholarship, and the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. And it's just like that. It's something that we all can give to through the give to the university through our planned giving. I also, there was a quote that I've always loved, and I'm gonna read it to you really quick, is I found that among its others benefits, giving liberates the soul of the giver, and that's by Maya Angelou. So I've always felt good about being able to, even if it's just skip a meal on a Friday night or going out, being able to drop $25, $50 here, it's easy. And eventually it'll be easier to give $50, $100. It maybe not so much 10% of your salary each, because we have our obligations to church and other organizations, but it's always been instilled for me to, well, not always, after I've met alumni like Dr. Clark, Dr. Witherspoon, Jim Stewart, Rhonda McFarland again, and the Begdons, I saw that what they were doing for the university and how it gave them such a great feeling, and it was so rewarding. I felt that I should follow in their footsteps, and that I owe that to them that came before me and the students that will come behind me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Daryl K. Lester, I'm going to ask that same question of you, sir, and you have a unique perspective, but can you just tell us, who or what inspired you to be a donor to this university?
Wow. Well, good evening to everybody. I think listening to the other stories, I came to NC State as a graduate student, so I was different than the folks on that panel. I came from a small liberal arts college, and because I was grounded and raised in South Carolina, my parents had already instilled in me some things that I think that other people just help amplify. I think Wofford did that, but then NC State took that to a whole nother level, bumping into Dr. Clark and Dr. Witherspoon, the Conways, and those questions of purpose that they posed to me as I worked as a graduate assistant in African American Student Affairs, when they said, well, who are you? Why are you here? Where are you going? What contribution will you make? And that is something that really just stuck with me. And because of my work experience, I got out into the broader field of philanthropy, and I began to push and ask those questions to folks around, why is the narrative sometime around philanthropy having folks that look like you and I as only the receivers? And I pushed because those brothers pushed me. They say, you better know the contribution to every field that you work in. And so when I came, and I had a chance to leave and I came back, but from 1991 to probably up until about 2014, 2015, I came back and I did the sessions called Who Am I that they taught me. And that has been the piece now that when I look at how do I give, I think one, when I came back, I said, I'm gonna make a sacrifice. I'm gonna be a part of the chancellor circle one day. Cause I said, you know what? I can sacrifice some things and I can get in there. But I recognize it wasn't always equal giving. It was equal sacrifice. And so I was willing to just forego some stuff so that I could be in that, because I think that is what they wanted me to do. And so my story is just like everybody else's, is that because I bumped into two brothers that really, really instilled something in my head and heart, I'm gonna sacrifice to find a way to sow to my university. Yes, I'm sowing to Wofford, but I certainly want to sow to NC State, because what I got here, nobody can ever, ever take away from me. And so those brothers now, I think, are smiling and saying, y'all have figured it out. So we have to figure out a way to sow to help other young people coming behind us to figure it out too.
Thank you. I'm going to toss it over to Angela Rivers, and then the last but not least, we're going to ask Kirk for his input and tell us his story. But Angela, tell us how you were inspired, or who or what inspired you to be a donor as a Black alumna of this university.
Good evening to everyone, and I'm just being really inspired by the panelists. But if I think about what really caused me or inspired me to give, I would say it was retrospection. So I came to NC State in 1979, graduated in 1983, and my first year there was a struggle. There were days that in my freshman year, I was hungry. And I don't know if any of you, Johnny may remember this, but when you attended the football game, on the back, your ticket from the game, you could get a free Big Mac. There were days that I was hungry. But life goes on. You leave the university with a love for the university, and I did. And I always spoke highly of the university. I always encouraged people to attend. I have a couple of cousins that I was able to convince to attend. But as I journeyed through life and had successes and even challenges, I look back and I think about what allowed me to get to this point. And I truly have to say NC State. I have to give the school that prop and that recognition. And so while I was giving all throughout these years to other institutions, Stephanie talked about giving to the church and giving my 10% to the church. But as I look back on my journey and think about why I'm here and what helped me become successful, and that was NC State. And that was what inspired me to give. I would give a few dollars here or there every blue moon, but I just recently decided that I wanted to make that financial commitment to the university. And so through cash gifts, through planned gifts, but that was the reason. It was retrospection.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela. All right, Kirk, this is your show.
Uh-oh, here we go. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be on this panel with so many great people. I watched Stephanie Cogdell come to NC State as a freshman. I was already a student there, and we got to know her pretty well. Watched her pledge Delta. Johnny Chapman helped bring me in to the fold of Alpha Phi Alpha while I was there. And I remember when Darrell Lester showed up on campus, because I worked in India Hall's office. And so we spent a lot of time together over there and learned a lot at the feet of Dr. Clark and Dr. Witherspoon. First of all, I have to go back to my mom, because she always said, to whom much is given, much is required. It's just that simple. But to start giving money to NC State, it was Gus Witherspoon and Lawrence Clark. They were my fraternity brothers, but they were also my mentors. There were times where I affectionately called him Gus, would call me and say, Brother Wilder, I need to see you in Dr. Clark's office this afternoon. And it was a come to Jesus meeting about something that either I should be doing, better get done, or they were just always on. They had expectations. I'll tell you a real funny story real quick with respect to them before I finish. There was a time period when I was a senior, and I had such a great relationship with Dr. Witherspoon and Dr. Clark and India Hall and Dr. Hill that there was a meeting one day over in the student affairs department, and I was summoned into a meeting with all of them, and I was the only student, and I walked in and I looked at Dr. Witherspoon and I said, have I done anything wrong? And he said no. And I said, okay. Well, then why am I here? And he said, we need a new, and this is in the middle of my senior year, we need a new president of the Panhellenic Council. I said, okay, well, you know, Travis is the vice president. He just moves up, right? And Dr. Witherspoon looked at me and said, no. And he said, you're going to be the new president. I said, Dr. Witherspoon, you know, I'm trying to graduate. I got to go to law school. I got all this stuff going on. And he just looked at me and he said, Brother Wilder. And I just dropped my head and that was it. I said, what you need me to do? So when I tell that story, I've told that story before, just to illustrate how they sold into me and how they sold into us and how there were expectations. And part of the expectation was you reach back and you help people at your university for what the university and what the people at your university have done for you. So that really was the inspiration.
So all of these stories have just demonstrated, you know, about the community that insulated these students, you all, when you all were students, and inspired you. So thank you all for sharing those stories with us. Those were all so inspiring. And now we have a few curated questions for each of you that you'll have about 5 minutes to answer. And since we ended the lightning round with Kirk, we'll start the next section with him. So you don't turn off your microphone yet. You're still on. You're still hot. Your mic's still hot. So
we got it.
Kirk, you, your wife, and now your daughter all attended NC State. So
Correct.
Building one kind of legacy at the university. And I assume that you and your wife, Dr. Sonia Wyndham, had a pretty candid conversation with your daughter about why you chose to create a philanthropic legacy through the establishment of the Wyndham Wilder Family Scholarship. So briefly, take us through the conversation that you had with your daughter and tell us about her reaction to y'all giving away her money.
Well, look, I give my money to NC State for her to go there. So, so I get to do with my money what I want to do with my money.
You can't say that, Kirk. You can't say that, Kirk.
But no, we did have a conversation with her. And again, I harken back to what my mom always told me, you know, to whom much is given, much is required. And that we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility. And I'm going to tell you, there was one individual, we decided as a family that we would endow a scholarship. And we wanted to endow it in the College of Sciences. My wife has her degree from the NC State College of Sciences. And my daughter's going to get her degree in May in the College of Sciences. You know, mine is from Humanities and Social Sciences, but the College of Sciences is near and dear to my heart because of Wander Hill. So, so there was a brother that meant everything to me, changed my life. Met him the first day that I walked on NC State's campus in the summer of 1986 when I went to the African American Symposium. This brother was from about 30 miles outside of my hometown. And this brother wrote me a personal note. And he said, find me. So I found him. I did not know that at the symposium, they want you to display some talent, if you will. They want the incoming freshmen to display talent. So he asked me, he said, well, what do you do? What did you do at home? I told him I sang in the church choir. He said, okay, well, do you know Precious Lord? I said, okay, yeah, I do. He said, okay, let me hear you sing it. So I sang it. And so from that point, he contacted me after he got home from summer session. He helped me move in to campus in Metcalf when I got there in the fall. This brother had changed my life. This brother sat home for a semester because he ran out of money. He ran out of, literally, ran out of money. He was not going to come back to college. His family didn't have the money. He didn't have the money. If I had it, I would have gave it to him. I didn't have it. This brother, a professor, he was an excellent student. A professor noticed that he wasn't in school for the semester, contacted him. Why are you not here? I don't have any money. Professor said, well, look, if you come to a summer session, and you get a B in a class, I can get you a scholarship to get you back into school. He said, with all due respect, I don't have the money for summer session. The professor wrote a check, told him, you pay me back after you graduate. That brother came back to college in the summer, got an A, got that scholarship, and now is doing an amazing job for his family, for his children. His life changed as a result of getting, and at the time it was a large amount of money, but honestly, it was about $1,000. It was about $1,000 that brother needed to get into summer session. And I recognize I've had a first row seat to his life because, like I said, he changed my life. So I said, there's absolutely, with my wife, mom being a teacher, with my mother being a teacher, there's absolutely no way that we can't do something like that for another student that was done for him. Just give them the opportunity to finish their college degree. And that was the impetus of the Wyndham Wilder Family Scholarship Endowment.
Thank you. Like I said before, it's a blessing to be a blessing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Angela Caraway, I'm going to toss it over to you. And aren't you excited that the inaugural scholars of your family scholarship, your Angela C. Caraway Family Scholarship, were recently named? And those young women, their stories were so inspiring, and it was so wonderful to read the stories and how your scholarship is going to impact their lives. So briefly talk to us about your experience and, you know, creating that. And if you have any tips for any other diverse alumni who are interested in making a similar impact to the way that you did that for those students.
Yeah, it is very exciting that that the first 3 scholarships have been dispersed, and I'm excited for those young ladies. And I cried when it happened. I actually went Facebook Live and it was like, yay, guess what? I did it. Which was a big accomplishment for me because it's been in the making for a little while. And Matt actually was one of the first 3 people that I told when it actually happened. So I reached out to a friend of ours, Matt and mine, Josh Privet, because Josh had moved into a new position. So I didn't know how the process worked, and I called him up, and actually I was working on, I'm the event planner for Packapalooza, by the way, and I was in a meeting and I said to Josh, listen, I want to talk about how to do this scholarship thing because, you know, the way my bank account is set up, I may need to put it on layaway or something like that. We talked about layaway scholarships yesterday, but I was for real. I was like, how do I put this on layaway because of, you know, the way my account is set up. So I said to him, I said, but I'm very serious. I really do need to understand the process because it may not be as bad as I think it is. So because I created the narrative that it was hard and that I needed to have, you know, Kurt Wilder's money in order to create the scholarship or some endowment.
See, you're not right. You're not right.
You're right. And I didn't have, you know, those dollars like that. And at least that's what I thought, right? I thought that I didn't. And I said, well, at least I could do is create, do the whole process of, once I die, leave part of my life insurance policy to the university and all of those things. So I was like, okay, I want to do that. That's fine. I get that. I'm going to be dead. This is what I want to happen. Well, I finally set up a meeting with Josh, and I said, here's my big picture. I want to create an endowment, and because that sounded good. The name sounded great. Didn't really know how that worked, but it sounded good, Caraway Endowment. And I said, and I want to have a scholarship. And I said, so what does that look like? How does that process work? And so he told me, and I said, that's it. I said, seriously, is that it? Like, what? So I got 5 years to put, seriously, this is it? And I thought maybe he was going to come back with some other, that I'm going to have to do something else and all the things. And he was like, no, seriously, it's that simple. And it really was that simple. And I was excited about the fact that the endowment could be created now versus it being, obviously after I passed away, but that I get a chance to see that that is created right now, and that I have an opportunity to create the scholarship. And what my biggest struggle was the name for me. I was going to name it after my grandparents, and I tossed that back and forth, and I settled with the Angela C. Caraway and Family Scholarship Fund. Now, my family is probably like, they actually said, how much do I have to give? Like, what I got to, but I would say, and I told them, just save your pennies and we're going to add to it. But it really was an easy process. Josh was great. He has worked with me. We have talked about things. And I have shared with him how I really want him and I to talk about this on a Facebook Live or something, so that way other Black folks from the university would know that it really is a simple process. You just have to be very clear on what it is that you want your scholarship to be, the amount of money. And I don't care if it's $100 or $250, that you just gotta do it and get out of your own head to, that you're telling yourself, oh, I have to have Kurt Wilder's money in order to do this, that you can really have $100 or Angela Caraway's money of $150 to create a scholarship in your name or what have you. But I really wanted my scholarship to focus on students from rural counties. I'm from a rural county, and I wanted to make sure that that it wasn't just a student from Anson County, which is how I actually went into this at first. But I also knew that there are other students from other rural counties in the state that needed support. And so I broadened that from just being Anson County to it being other rural counties in the state. And so the process was easy. I am excited. My ultimate goal is for every student that applies to for the Angela C. Caraway Scholarship, that possibly I can award them the scholarship. Now, I heard that there were a lot of people that applied for the scholarship this year, which is great. That makes me smile, but that also tells me that there's a huge need. It is what it did. And it also told me that there's work to be done, that I got to continue to do more, and that I got to figure out how I can do that for every student that applied. Maybe I may not can do 1,000 or 1,500, or maybe I can do $500 to each of those students, or do something like that. But that's my ultimate goal. I mean, it hurts me to hear stories about that people can't come back to school because of $1,000, even though that was years ago, but that's still happening to today. And so to know that my scholarship is making some dreams possible or continuing, that makes me smile, and it makes me happy. And I'm excited about, continuing this and continuing my push and figuring out how I can make extra money, not go out like Stephanie say, and try to find those free Big Macs on the back of coupon or tickets, and do what I can to help save money such that other students can have the opportunity to obtain an Angela C. Caraway and Family Scholarship. So I just say to you for your tips is to get out of your own head, talk about, you know, what it is that you want to do, and you'll find that the process is really easy, that there could be a layaway plan for you, that you can certainly go about the process and afford. I certainly know that you can establish a scholarship, whether it's $250, $500, but you can do it. Don't think that you can't. You can do it. Some of you buy PS4 games and, you know, Nike shoes, Michael Jordan shoes. Michael Jordan making some scholarships, but your $150 can create a scholarship too. And I just say do it. Reach out to Matthew, Maylie, and just do it. Or call Kirk for a loan and get that. But hashtag Kurt Weiler's money. So that's my story.
That is the catchphrase for the year end. You have Kirk Wilder money. Forget Robert Smith. I don't care.
Y'all got jokes.
Yeah, I don't know Robert Smith.
It doesn't matter what he did for Morehouse. This is what Wilder's doing for NC State, and this is what you're doing for NC State. So we do appreciate that, and you're right. It is about, you know, it is attainable, it's achievable, and it's something, you know, something that everyone can do, and we do thank you for your support. Now I want to turn it over to our other Angela. And so Angela Rivers, I want to talk to you a little bit just for a few minutes, because I know we're coming up on time. But, you know, as a member of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences Dean's Advisory Board, you are very familiar with the work that the faculty and staff are doing to support diverse students inside and outside the classroom. So talk to us briefly about why you're choosing to support some of that work and how you're planning to do it. And Kirk Wilder giving you a loan is an option. That is one answer that you can give, because clearly that's the answer that we're all going to be deferring to. Thanks, Kirk.
So you took the words right out of my mouth, because that was going to be my first question. Hey, Kirk, can I get some money? And and Angela Caraway, so we've got to connect, because although I was born and raised in Charlotte, my parents are from Anson County, and my father is still there. So who knows, we may be related. Here's the one thing I would say. I am truly less concerned about what it's called, but I'm more concerned about where it goes. And again, I'll always remember those days that I was hungry and I had too much pride to ask. So I used that ticket on the back from the game ticket. So what I'm doing is really trying to have some very candid conversations with CHAS to make sure that the dollars that we're giving are supporting diverse students, students who have needs beyond, because if we think about it, there are many of us who are just one generation away from parents maybe who didn't go to school, or perhaps you're two generations away. So what I'm trying to do is just to make sure that whatever I give, that the giving is given to diverse students. In the process of fashioning that, I am courageous in the ask. I am very courageous in saying where I want my dollars to go, because although my husband and I don't have children, I've got nieces and nephews who would like to have some cash. So since I'm going to be taking from their pockets, I want to make sure that we set up some effort or some way to make sure that we're giving to the diverse students. That's the first thing. The second thing too is I want to make sure, I'm fortunate to be a senior leader at Bank of America, and I want to make sure that from a CHAS perspective that we're taking advantage of the talent that is coming out of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. Lots of phenomenal opportunities in the financial industry. So if I can also influence that as well, that's certainly what I'm doing. But working really hard with the dean and the board to try to make sure that we get dollars earmarked to where they need to be and contributing to that. So Kirk, I'll pass the plate. Help us out.
Angela, thank you for that. And don't know if your family knows that you're taking money out of their pockets. Hopefully they're not on this conversation tonight, so we're not going to share that with them, but thank you for that consideration. I will say that we're running close on time, and I want to be able to ask all these amazing questions that we're getting from the audience and some of the other questions that we had lined up, but this means we'll have to do something at another time. We'll have to, reconvene. We'll have sort of a reunion of our panelists at some point. And I will say this, I admit that I had a really clever remark written to wrap up this panel conversation, but there really isn't much more that I can say that hasn't already been said so eloquently by our panelists tonight. Philanthropy is part of our unique culture. We've been giving back to our families and our communities for centuries through our community service, through our caregiving, through our tithing, and our leadership. And NC State's Black alumni are uniquely positioned in this very moment to amplify its collective voice, move the needle, and make that impact. And those of you who are still on the call, you can join the ranks of these philanthropists who spoke this evening during next week's Day of Giving, another shameless plug. That's a really great time to start. If you haven't yet, it's a wonderful time to start. And as you've heard, it doesn't matter how much the amount is, you just have to start giving. You gotta start somewhere. And the $40,000 that BAS raised last year on Day of Giving is just the beginning. So I'm excited about what's gonna happen this year. And I'm so excited that you all have shared your stories. I'm excited that the audience has stayed to listen to your inspiring stories. And I'm really happy and honored to have the opportunity to work with each of you as NC State alumni and as philanthropists. It is my honor and my pleasure. And I thank you so much for your time. So now I'll turn it back over to Johnny for a few final thoughts. Johnny, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you to our panelists, Joe Johnson and Maylie, for their participation in our incredible program this evening. I also want to thank you all for joining us this evening. I hope you were able to not only learn about the makeup of our students and how to make your gift to NC State, but I hope you are inspired to think about what impact you want to make and the legacy. You heard me talk about that word legacy you want to leave. I encourage you to join BAS on Day of Giving next Wednesday and make a gift to the Clark or Witherspoon Scholarship. I also encourage you to reach out to your development officer and start your own giving conversation. You heard tonight how easy it is to start that. So please reach out to them. And lastly, I pass it off to Matt to close us out tonight.
All right, thank you, Johnny. And again, thank you to all of our panelists. So in wrapping up in those next steps, like everyone has said, Day of Giving is next Wednesday. And I just have to throw another little plug out there that last year, the Black Alumni Society won again 2 challenges, including the challenge in which came from the most young alumni gifts within an hour that resulted in up to near, I think within the challenges, they went around like $7,000 extra or something like that. So that is that thing that it pays to just submit whatever you can on that day. And also, like Johnny said, and reaching out to the development officers. And I'll say another thing, just if we send you an email or a phone call, please, we don't bite. We're just there to talk to you, to go ahead and have that conversation. And another thing I'll put out there, a lot of times as people move around, as you may know, you don't always update your information. So heading to the university to update your contact information so we're able to reach out to you when those times are really there, whether it's an invitation to an event, something coming from the Black Alumni Society for engagement, or those times where it's time to have that giving conversation. That's a big step, and I'll make sure that it's in the follow-up documentation that we'll send out after this email. And at the end of the day, I really hope that you all explore the giving pages and all the information that is around the university, whether it be on your college's website, whether it be on university-wide giving websites. There's so much information. I mean, even planned giving. You can even go to the planned giving website and request that they send you a planned giving guide. And that has all the information in there on starting those steps as well. So thank you all again for being here this evening, and keep it in mind, impact and legacy. We got you. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great evening. Thank you so much.